things to emerge in the last 10 to 15 years of video gaming is the inclusion of morality systems and choice mechanics. Most of us can recall a game we've played that requires us to make moral decisions. Whether it's Bioshock having players save little sisters or harvest them, or Mass Effect having you talk to Rex or, shoot him, these types of moral choices have added a level of engagement from players only available in games. Movies, television, and literature can all make the consumer feel a certain way, but only games make a person also act on that feeling in some capacity. However, part of the issue with most games that have these elements is they often oversimplify morality. They present them as completely binary decisions, with little to no ethical gray area. In Bioshock, for example, you either save the Little Sisters or you consume them for Adam. Most of the decisions in Mass Effect work that way too. Either you save the Rachni Queen, or you kill her and doom her entire species to extinction. In Far Cry 3, you either rescue or kill your girlfriend. Even superhero games have gotten in on the action. Spider-Man Web of Shadows gives players the option to play as the pure good Spidey with his traditional blue and red costume, or to play as the more badass anti-hero with his alien symbiote black outfit. At the end of the day, many games provide completely binary moral decisions, good or bad. Killing your girlfriend in Far Cry 3 wasn't a hard decision for me to make because there's no way I would ever do that or be okay with that. In contrast, one of the things Far Cry 4 did better was its choices. Essentially, they present you with these two opposing political leaders, both of whom have totally valid ideas, but also present truly problematic and dangerous ones as well, making you feel like you're stuck having to pick between the lesser of two evils. This provides realistic complexity and makes the decisions a bit murkier. Still, if the narrative or characters are strong enough, choices can make a game far more powerful. For me, one of the most gut-wrenching decisions in recent memory came at the conclusion of Life is Strange, when, after almost a year and 5 episodes, you have to decide whether to save Chloe or the town of Arcadia Bay. Even though it was pretty clear that saving or sacrificing Chloe would be the crux of the final decision of the game, it still gave me pause. And ultimately it wasn't a difficult decision. When presented with the option of saving my best friend who keeps getting herself killed all game long, or saving literally the entire town, it wasn't a terribly hard decision to make. I was never going to just let an entire town get wiped off the planet just so I could hang out with my best friend more. At the same time, making that a choice for the player at all makes it feel like a bit more of a gut punch. While it was never really a tough choice to make, it was a tough choice to take. At the end of the day, I still felt horrible about it. I did have the power to save Chloe if I wanted to. And then in the end, it wasn't just the way it had to be. There was an alternative. The game didn't force one outcome down my throat. I had to actively decide which way it would go. My ethical code might have dictated that the town be saved. That doesn't mean I'm going to feel all vindicated while attending my best friend's funeral. It still sucks to have to make that choice at all. And that's the power of choice in gaming. Many people might feel robbed if the choices don't lead to distinctly different outcomes. This is especially apparent in Mass Effect, or Telltale's The Walking Dead. If you kill the Rachni Queen in Mass Effect, BioWare kind of overrides that decision by bringing in the sort of cyborg Rachni regardless of your choice later in Mass Effect 3. Or you can spend so much energy trying to unite the Quarians and the Geth only to then decide to destroy the Reapers, which subsequently eliminates all of the Geth you just tried to help save. In The Walking Dead, you're constantly presented with decisions about who to save. In Episode 1, you either save Carly or you save Doug. Not long after, whoever you save gets shot and killed by Lily in the same cutscene either way. So the big question there is, what's the point? Why let players decide things that don't ultimately impact the outcome, or that the writers are just going to ignore in the end anyway? Well, part of it might be because the game is ultimately about the illusion of choice, as seems to be the case in The Walking Dead. These constant game-driven resets of your choices function to remind you that you're not actually in as much control as you'd like to think you are. That goes hand in hand with the world of the game, where the characters in the Walking Dead universe constantly struggle to find safety, only to find that there isn't really any such thing. Whether it's the zombies or the humans, there is always an outside force impacting your life, rendering some of your choices and decisions pointless. That, of course, is a bit different from Mass Effect, whose big problem was really what the developers were saying in the lead-up to the games. If they hadn't constantly told players that the games were being built around the idea of a playthrough being your Commander Shepard and your story, then the illusion of choice concept wouldn't have felt so detrimental. Some, myself included, have criticized The Walking Dead for almost immediately undoing your choices. However, after some time away from the game, I can't help but recognize that it only becomes a problem on replays of the game. When you save Doug or Carly that first time, you don't know that they're going to just die later in a cutscene. Saving that person now does not mean that they won't die later. One game that people don't often talk about when it comes to choice mechanics in gaming is Splinter Cell Double Agent. I recently replayed it as part of a Splinter Cell retrospective series, so it's fresh in my brain, but I was a bit surprised that it never comes up, since it provides an example of both interesting and bad ways to handle choices in gaming. And it's important to make a distinction between choice mechanics and simple morality. They aren't exactly the same. In Double Agent, the ethical way to go is never muddy. You're presented with all of these super simple, easy choices to make from a moral standpoint. For example, one mission presents you with the choice of either saving or killing another government mole inside this terrorist organization. He's someone Sam Fisher has known and worked with for a while, and given that fans of the series have presumably played as Sam and come to really like him, it's hard to see the character murdering another good guy. Here, the moral choice is super easy. However, the game doesn't frame these choices as ethical versus unethical. Instead, it presents ugly choices in context of the greater mission. See, as a double agent, you need to earn the trust of the JBA's leader, Emile Dufresne. you can't afford to become too suspicious. So, occasionally, you need to do what he asks. At the same time, you also need to retain the trust of Lambert and the NSA. In the case of killing or saving that other agent, your choice might very well depend on your trust meter. By the time that mission came up, I actually did struggle for a moment on what to do. Ethically, it's super easy, it's black and white. Obviously, you don't kill that agent. And yet, the choices are framed around the success of the mission. Could I afford to not kill the agent? How much trust would I lose from the JBA if he doesn't wind up dead? Will I fail my mission to infiltrate and take down this terrorist organization? Hell, there's a lot on the line here. It was a surprisingly effective way to reframe an otherwise totally simple moral decision. And there are a few of those choices throughout the game as well. If it went all the way with these, then we might very well be talking about Double Agent as a shining example of how to make even simple decisions in video games feel painfully complicated. On the flip side, of course, is that once you've played the game, you kind of figure out that there isn't really a penalty for leaning too heavily to one side. In the PS2 version of the game, you can do only NSA side objectives and not lose the game. So long as you accomplish all of your mission-critical priority objectives, then there isn't really a game-ending scenario should you not do anything the terrorists ask. The only consequence of playing too heroically is that every so often Dufresne will demand that you get in touch with him, and this means you'll have to backtrack through the level and radio in. That earns you some token JBA trust, which then allows you the room to once again play heavily in favor of the NSA. In the PS3 version of the game, you get a separate trust bar for both the JBA and the NSA, rather than one. So doing things for the JBA does not inherently lose trust from the NSA, like it does in the PS2 edition. This further removes consequence from the choices. Once you realize that the trust really doesn't hurt your chances of beating the game, the decisions get a lot easier. So the lesson here is that while the way you frame choices is very important, so too is having adequate consequences. More and more games are starting to get into complex concepts of morality and choices. This War of Mine does a great job building the entire game around this. As surviving civilians in a war-torn city, you're often presented with difficult decisions. While looking for supplies in a house, you could find out that the house is still inhabited. You could then find some food and medicine. If no one was there, you'd probably have no problem just taking it for yourself. However, with people still living there, it's a bit more iffy. On the one hand, you might need that food and medicine to survive yourself. Supplies are scarce, and who knows when you'll find some more. At the same time, you also understand that these people you're stealing from might also need it too. Do you take it? Does your own survival trump others? Is it unethical to take it from them if you legitimately need it to survive yourself? We also see some more complicated ethical dilemmas presented in Papers, Please, where as a clerk processing immigrants, you're often torn between trying to help refugees fleeing horrible realities of their lands with trying to protect your family. If you allow someone in without proper paperwork, you lose money, which is also in short supply in your country. If you can't afford medicine or food or heat, you put your own family at risk. Even more, if you get too many strikes against you for letting people in improperly, you would be arrested and executed, which also hurts your family. These games are hugely important and highlight the full potential of the medium. It showcases just how good games can be at generating empathy. You're not passively watching someone else tell you how to feel here, you're an active participant. That makes a world of difference. With more powerful technology allowing for games to become even bigger and include more branching storylines, it's probably safe to assume that these mechanics will only get better. Okay, so depicting morality as this super simplified, binary, black and white, good and evil thing doesn't inherently mean that your game is going to be bad and the choice mechanics are broken. It just depends on what you want your game to be and do. Great example of binary morality done really well is Undertale. It's an RPG and you can go through and you can kill everything as you would usually do in an RPG. Except in Undertale, you have an alternative, which you don't have in other games. You can actually figure out the correct course of actions and things to say to essentially talk enemies out of wanting to fight you. So you don't have to kill anything in Undertale, including the bosses, including the final boss. So here is a binary moral system that's very clear-cut. Killing things is wrong. Saving things and showing mercy is good. We learn so much from video games. But it's consistent and it's worked in organically into the gameplay. It just gives you the game and you make these decisions every time. It doesn't interrupt itself to say, hey, here's the decision, you better choose wisely. And an example of inconsistent morality systems, and I don't want to bring it up, but I have to, it's the one I keep coming back to, Mass Effect. Now the thing with Mass Effect is, for most of the game, the decisions you have to make are very simple and black and white, or blue and red, rather. Paragon, Renegade, good guy, bad guy. And most of the decisions are very clear-cut. They're not really that ambiguous of a decision for most of the series, until you get to the end of the first Mass Effect, when you're confronted with the decision that boils down to, do you sacrifice human lives to save alien lives, or do you save alien lives to save, or sacrifice alien lives to save human lives? So basically you have to determine, do you value human lives more than alien lives or vice versa? Complex situations, the answer is going to depend on whoever's playing it. Lots of room for conversation, very gray area. Great decision. Love it. Except that the Paragon Renegade system that they have built into the gameplay is intrinsically binary, blue-red. So it still treats that decision, right? Saving the Alliance, or saving the Council, the aliens, is the Paragon thing to do, according to the game. Saving the humans is the Renegade thing to do, according to the game. So it gives you a complex moral decision to have to make that is open to much discussion, but then in the end, it still treats your decision in this super binary fashion. So it feels a little incohesive, to me at least, in that way. I think that they do a better job in Dragon Age with the morality system. So what do you think? Do you think that these super simplified moral choices in video games have been a little bit disappointing? Do you think that are you excited for more morality being introduced into games, that this is a great innovation for the medium? And what is the hardest choice you've ever had to make in a video game? Thank you for watching. I have a cough, which is why it sounds like I'm chewing on, or I have 2 cough drops in my mouth. It's because I have 2 cough drops in my mouth.